Well, it seems like it's going to be a few months before we can get back into the club rooms again, so we thought we would try something a little bit different whilst we're all online and make some videos to cover some of the things we normally get on a club night, talking about different techniques, talking about different layouts, maybe even some layout tours if we can manage that. And so for the first one I thought I would try and make a video of a project I've been doing recently, which is to make some Kirby couplings, which are a modification of Bachmann couplings to allow them to work automatically. Now the background to this is I built a little layout for my son a few months ago, a very simple shunting plank that he can have sat in his room, just an Inglenook shunting plank, and that worked great, but he's getting very frustrated with having to manually uncouple the tension lock couplings, so I'm going to try building some of these Kirby couplings. I've not done this before, but I thought I'd video it, put it out there. Maybe it's useful to some people in the club. It's a very simple change to do, very cheap, and it does seem to work quite well, so let's get on with building these couplings. So Kirby couplings are named after Brian Kirby, who I believe was the first person to come up with this idea, which is to make a simple modification to a tension link coupling by placing a magnet under the track and using a staple on the coupling to allow it to remotely uncouple. So what we're going to do here is take our wagon, and the first thing I do is take off the coupling link and then pop the hook out from the coupling. What I'm going to do is drill a small hole through the coupling to give me some mechanical attachment for the metal staple. You don't have to do this, you could just glue it on. I felt a bit happier having a hole through here. So we start off with a 0.5mm drill and just twiddle away to make a hole through the coupling, and you'll see here why you use Bachmann couplings, because they're brass inside rather than steel. And one of my changes here is to use some soft iron wire rather than use a staple. I just felt this was a bit easier to do, at least for me. I had some iron wire lying around, so that was useful. And so I take the wire, I bend a little U shape into the wire, feed it through the hole, and then clamp it into the coupling, and then just squeeze that together with some pliers. And this soft iron wire is easily available from eBay or somewhere like Eileen's Emporium. But of course the original technique is actually just to use a staple. Now once it's attached, I stick it on with a little bit of super glue. What I do here is decant some of my super glue onto a bit of food wrapping, and that keeps it nice and workable for a long time. I can just pick it up on a pin, smear it over the coupling delicately, and there it is attached on with the tail hanging down straight at the minute. We will bend that back in just a minute so it's sitting underneath the wagon. So in true Blue Peter fashion, here is one that I've made earlier, and you see here I've already bent this wire backwards. This wire is very soft, it's very easy to bend. And so you see the tail there, which is what's going to be attracted to the magnet, pulled down and then lift the tension lock coupling up. It's then a case of reassembling it back into the coupling hook. What I actually do is remove the hook from one end of my wagons. This does make the wagons sided, they have to couple together in the same direction, but it does make it easier to set things up. And there you see the wagon with the tail underneath. I found I needed tails which were about 3/8 of an inch long, and so this system works by having magnets underneath the track to pull down that magnetic tail, either a staple or the iron wire that I've used. As the wagon goes over, the tail's attracted down to the magnet, which lifts the coupling hook up. Here you can see it in action, lifting up there, and you can uncouple quite easily. You see I've only got one hook on one side of the wagon. As you pull across the couplings under tension, the tension lock doesn't allow itself to lift up. There's a little lip on the hook there, and that keeps it together when you're pulling across. So now on to installing the magnets on the layout. The first step we're doing here is to measure that our wagons clear each other at the crossings, so we have enough space to shunt back. I'm just marking a couple of points now as to where I want these magnets. I did start off installing these with just a single magnet on each siding. What I found is that worked, but it was very sensitive to the position, and so I've gone back and modified this to have two magnets which gives you a larger capture range for your uncoupling. So this is a very simple shunting plank. It is just stuck down with some double-sided sticky tape, so very easy to lift the track. Here we come in with an 8mm drill bit to make a space for these 8mm magnets. Obviously whatever size you use, you'd have to adapt to that. Getting the junior shunter involved and adapting the layout, having a little bit of trouble because you can't quite push down hard enough onto the drill. A little bit of extra weight from Dad. And we just gently make these holes, just check they're just deep enough to get the magnet subflush with the surface and sit underneath the track. As I say, for my magnets that I got, I found that was okay to activate the couplings. And so onto the main siding now, we just lift that up. Again, you see the two marks there. I've put these about 15mm apart. That seemed to work quite well. Gives a nice wide activation range for the coupling. And now we take the stack of magnets. What I'm doing here is checking that the magnets all have the same polarity. They're facing in the same direction. Then just pop them into the holes that are good tight fit and slide the stack of magnets off. That leaves them in place. You do have to be a bit careful with these magnets. They like getting attracted to each other, and my son had a little bit of trouble here getting these magnets to behave, but we did eventually manage to get all the magnets in their holes. And now we're ready just to reinstall the track back on top. Quite simple. Fit the fish plates in, line it up and press it down onto the double-sided tape. And here you see a picture of these magnets installed. I say 8mm magnets is what I used, about 12 to 15mm apart. So time to give it a test. Hand over the controls to the junior shunter. Back one wagon up there. Let's see if it's released. It has. Away we go. What I found with these, with the soft iron wire, you do have to adjust the height of the coupling tail above the rail. You need to make sure it's low enough down that it will get pulled in by the magnet, but not so low down that it's going to get caught on the sleepers or on the rails, particularly through the crossings. That took a few seconds for each magnet, for each wagon rather. And here we see coming back out up into the head shunt, we've left those 4 trucks nice and cleanly in the main, and here we come running into the main wagon. And this is something you have to watch for, that it's quite easy to fly shunt here. I think that's because the coupling hook sits over the magnet and leaves the coupling arm up, so you have to approach quite gently. And here we come back in for the last one. Let's see if we can buffer this up nice and gently, push back over the wagon, just nip it up a little bit, release the coupling, and away we go. So that's a very simple modification. It doesn't take very long to do to your wagons. It's a very cheap modification, and I certainly think it's made our layout a lot more useful. Hopefully you found the video useful, and if you did, then we'll maybe do more of these in the future.